Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to OPC. We're into week 3. I'm Kevin Averwalker, joined with me this evening, Matt, Pixie, Carol. We've been away for a week, but the OPC is back now. Let's get straight into what we've got lined up for tonight. The first match of the evening is Machi taking on Libalent Supreme.
This is really interesting. This weekend is the final weekend of the first round robin. So all teams will have played all other teams by the end of it. We're going to have a proper idea of who stands where and why.
All right, let's get a few words now from both sides before we head into the match. I will be translating over.
ホタテが今週で最後なので気合い入れて頑張ります。
今天是侯大队选手的最后一场比赛了，可能因为他自己家里的因素，所以他们会好好加油的。
This is Hotati's last match today.
其实我们和 LS 一直都是关系很不错的队伍，所以今天很期待他们对战。
So we've always had a very good relationship with Libalent Supreme, so we
把
wish
画
them
面
the
交
best.
给我们专业的主播赛评喽。
So that's a bit of a bombshell because I didn't quite catch up on that news, unfortunately. So Hotati's last match will be today. More specifically, what Selene said was he had some family issues that he does need to go back home to deal with. So that's going to, in my opinion, affect Libalent Supreme quite a lot because Hotati has been one of the key factors for that team that's been really driving them forward. Now, I know despite Libalent Supreme's their sort of record so far, the losses that they've had, Hotati has not been one of the reasons for them to have those losses.
Certainly not. Well, speaking of losses, they have had a number of losses, but the key thing over this weekend, like we said, everyone will have played everyone, and the two teams remaining for Libalent Supreme to play are the two teams just above them there in the standings, being Mega Thunder and Machi Esports, and the first one of those games will be against Machi Esports. So the big thing for them this weekend is to pull out a win, and certainly in terms of their ability, the quality of gameplay, it seems very possible. They've taken map wins off Flash Wolves. Like, they have had extremely strong performances. They've just never quite got it over the line. But you can't help but feel if they are able to get it over the line against any of the teams in this tournament, it is going to be against these two teams they've got to play this weekend.
And of course, it is their last opportunity to do that as well. The only two teams they haven't played just so happen to be the two teams right ahead of them in the standings, tied equal as well. So their best opportunity to pick up that win happens this weekend, and it might just start tonight.
It might just, and then of course immediately following that, we do have a few more matches than just one this weekend.
Let's take a look at some of the other matches, if we can bring that up, to have a look at what we're going to look forward to for the rest of this evening. So we are going to start things off with Libalent Supreme versus Machi Esports, followed by Ardent versus AHQ, and then ending the evening in probably the penultimate match of day 1 of week 3, Flash Wolves and Blank Esports, the rematch of last season's grand final.
Yeah, and it just went out earlier today actually on Twitter. Blank are feeling confident about that one. They're looking for a bit of, I believe the word they used was revenge and redemption. So that's what Flash Wolves kind of have to look out for. Yeah, 2 R's. I mean, I like the alliteration. But honestly, Flash Wolves, I mean, they've got their own thing to prove in there as well. But that is going to be coming up at the end of the night, of course. First up, Libalent versus Machi. Let's take a look at these two teams.
Yeah, so the 6 members that we've sort of remembered, this team does not have any subs, but they may just have to put one on now. It will be interesting to see who does sub in for Hotati starting from, I believe, tomorrow. No, they don't play tomorrow. They play on Sunday. So they have a little bit of a leeway to get someone in there. But like I said, look, Hotati has been one of the strengths of this team. It's certainly not one of the weaknesses. So to lose him may just affect their team quite a lot.
And of course, on the other side of that one will be Machi. No change-ups for their regular roster. D-Crown, No Talk, Kant, Nuns, Kiyomi, and Restia. They do actually have subs, but we have yet to see Rai in Season 2 so far. And I only saw him for a little bit during Season 1, right at the end and right at the beginning. So they feel like they've obviously got what's working for them right now. So a bit more of a detailed look at the players now as the captains do the old flyby. So I kind of want to talk about what we can kind of expect out of tonight, because we've said Libalent certainly have the potential to pick up wins. I want to talk about what that means, because it's not just in, oh look, they picked up a map win against Flash Wolves, and Flash Wolves are really high in the standings, because they have also only picked up match losses so far. So the thing that I've kind of felt about this team so far is there is that little, that 5% extra that just isn't quite there. And I talk a lot about getting it over the line, and that's what that 5% is. And it's if you are just that little bit not quite there compared to every other team, it looks like you're constantly underperforming, but that's just because on average you are. So a small bit of improvement out of this team is all it's going to take for them to go a really long way. But the question remains, after 5 matches that have been played so far, can they make that small improvement? And indeed, maybe having this week break has been the time for them to make that extra bit of improvement.
And looking on the Machi side as well, so this is the team that kind of, in my opinion, falls in the same boat as Libalent Supreme in many regards. Yes, they're slightly higher up in the standings. They have that extra match win over Libalent Supreme, but it is also a team that has had kind of very close matches. They had that best of 5 that went all the way to 5 maps against Flash Wolves not even that long ago. So the opportunity for Machi to really pick up these wins is seriously being there. It does feel like the bottom 4 teams, or rather the entire OPC in total, aside from Ardent that's been on a bit of a win streak, every other team has the ability to take wins off of every other team. And certainly for Machi, this is their opportunity now to get a little bit further in those standings and get back to where perhaps they should be.
And Machi as well, right now in the standings, have actually kind of gravitated towards roughly where they stand in this pack. Technically speaking, the only 2 teams they have not played yet are Libalent Supreme, who they're about to play right now, who are only 1 win below them in the standings, and Hong Kong Attitude, who are only 1 win above them in the standings. So it's not like they've got a match still against, Ardent or Flash Wolves, and winning that would be a sign that they are this really, high standing team. Like they're roughly where they are. Yeah. This weekend will determine exactly where they are, and then from there, it's going to be on them to make improvements throughout the second round robin to push for that top 4, because the competition is stiffer than Season 1. We've been saying that a lot, but Machi is one of the teams that's been feeling that harder competition, I think, a lot more than most, given that last season, they were constantly on the cusp of top 3, and this season, they're actually really struggling around that bottom 3. And
it actually seems quite fit that the match that may decide where they stand in terms of breaking past that barrier, like you said, is actually against Hong Kong Attitude on the final day of week 3 in the end of the first round robin, because Hong Kong Attitude from the first season, as mentioned, was that team that really prevented them from making that break into the higher rankings. So this time around, it does seem like once again Hong Kong Attitude will be the final boss for them at the end of the first round robin. That being said, though, for Machi, they have sort of, in terms of being tied with Mega Thunder at the moment, they've actually already beaten Mega Thunder. So that may affect the standings later on, because everyone else is playing the same sort of teams, but in the head-to-head, they are in fact ahead of the team they're currently tied with.
Yeah, and there's another interesting thing at play there as well, because like you said, they play Hong Kong Attitude as their final match at this first round robin. That is just so fitting. There is almost a rivalry building between these 2 teams now, like you said, because of how Season 1 played out for them both. But that actually kind of means it's almost more important to pick up the win now, because if they are if they're going to lose tonight against Libalent Supreme, then it wouldn't actually matter if they won or lost against Hong Kong Attitude. They would finish bottom 3 guaranteed. So they need both of those wins to prove that they are still in contention for top 4. And by the way, Hong Kong Attitude could, I say this in air quotes, afford to lose that game and still be in contention for top 4. So depending on how these 2 games go for Machi, they could remain mobile throughout the second round robin, or they could end up in a spot where they have to go on a real hot streak to push for top 4 and make playoffs.
I think all the bottom 4 teams kind of need that little bit of a hot streak. They need wins on the belt, and I'm not even too sure teams can realistically afford losses just yet. Hong Kong Attitude are ahead of the rest of the competition in that bottom 4, but the top 4 is more competitive than ever. The OPC Season 2, all 8 teams are more competitive than ever, but with the addition of Ardent, the same top 3 teams from last season already in that top 4, with Ardent leading the way. So now for Machi or Mega Thunder or Libalent or even Hong Kong Attitude to break past that, they have to be taking over one of the top 3 placements from the last season, and the first map has come up.
And it is going to be Lijiang Tower. Of course, Libalent have the home side tonight. That means they will get map picks 1, 3, and 5, which are the control map, the assault map, and the second escort map, respectively, whereas Machi Esports will get picks 2 and 4, being hybrid and escort, respectively. So I'm not surprised at Lijiang Tower. I mean, the term I keep coming back to is neutral territory, and that really is what Lijiang Tower is, especially for this first round robin where teams are still playing against each other for the first time. It just makes so much sense to go to Lijiang Tower, and it just really seems to suit, indeed, both of these teams in terms of play style.
More so than that, but Libalent Supreme took their 1 map win against Flash Wolves on Lijiang Tower, so it does feel like ground that is not just comfortable for Libalent Supreme, but surely where they can get a lot of success as well. So they've already proven that. They haven't got a match, but getting their first map win on the board, and against one of the top teams so far in the OPC nonetheless, I think is an important step for this team. So now they need to turn that into a full best of 5 win where they can pick up the other game modes as well.
Now, there is one thing that's kind of at play here that I think is worth mentioning, and that's, in a way, Machi are a slightly tougher challenge than Flash Wolves on Control. And I don't mean that, like, Machi are just better than Flash Wolves on Control. I don't quite mean it like that. But in terms of how the two teams play respectively, Flash Wolves' weakest game mode right now, and for a long time, in fact, is Control. That's pretty well established by this point. And yes, Libalent were able to take that off them, but Machi are just that little bit cleaner. They seem to just do a little bit better with having those two more mobile DPSs, whereas Flash Wolves tend to struggle if they don't have the Soldier. The Soldier struggles a bit on Control. So there are other factors at play there for that win against Flash Wolves. So I honestly think, in a way, Machi are going to pose a more significant challenge to Libalent here, but Libalent absolutely have the aptitude to overcome it.
And I think for all the teams now, especially for Libalent Supreme, who are behind the standings, that extra break in the middle of weeks 2 and 3 would probably help them a lot more. They just have so much more to catch up on in terms of what we look at from the other teams as well. So now we head into the actual match itself, and it is going to be Nunn straight onto the Doomfist as one of his key picks.
Yeah, and interesting that Hotade won't be. We've identified him as certainly one of the hotter Doomfist players of the tournament so far, but it is going to be on Control Room to begin with. Open skirmish. Just a solid dive out of Darrington, really punishing Nuns as well, who goes a bit deep. There is Hotade, but NoTalk kind of fighting back on those supports. Darrington is still in this, but he's got no supports to retreat to. He's still alive, and actually that means Libalent, he's finally going down actually, but Can's had to wrap back for that. So Libalent kind of have this ground on the point itself. Pick off on Restia as well. Hotade going down, and then actually now Machi again, bite back, I dare say, is good pickup by D-Crown off the end of that, and actually D-Crown that whole time was just kind of staying safe off to the side.
Well, both tanks sort of did the exact same thing in the initial engagement. You saw D-Crown, sorry, not D-Crown, you saw NoTalk going in quite deep. He picked up the 2 kills. Darton did the same thing on the other side. It was then up to the DPSs remaining. Guys like Pepper, guys like Kant to really pick up the rest. And unfortunately, Pepper couldn't get it done. Machi, the rest of their members could.
Yeah, and it really seems like Machi's dive here is looking nice and clean. They're struggling to actually close this one off, though. So they're going very all in on these dives, but if it doesn't pay off, they're going to be really up a tree without a ladder. And there it goes. That's the ladder being taken away from them, with the kills coming through as Libalent get the point and then collapse on the backside of Machi. So they took a long time to kill Keisuke there. Way too long.
And the best part for Libalent Supreme is not only did they manage to get the majority of the kills, but getting a quick cap over as well. They're certainly going to be looking to take the lead on progress very soon. Ultimate's coming back online as well. Libalent are certainly not as behind as Machi may have believed they were, and now they're going to have to pay for that.
Yeah, and I mean, look, that kind of dive sort of paid off first time around, but not so much the second time, so Machi really have to readdress how they're playing this. Hotade down to Nuns, though, but a good trade back by Jasper means they should be able to stay alive through this. That Dragon Blade not being available is very significant, though, so they really need to preserve what they've got. Nuns is on the verge of running rampants. They also need to shut him down, but they're kind of running out of ways to do that. Selene with the Transcendence out is going to be the kind of hold fast for them while they get Hotade back in the fight, but he gets picked off the moment that runs out. This is still really anyone's fight. It's all going to come down to this Dragon Blade as it already picks
shut down.
Straight shut down, yeah, by Nuns. Great pick out by him. And now this is honestly just a lot of ultimates being thrown about here. This is a lot of progress on the point for Libalent, but Machi are at the point where they should be able to tip the scales of this fight without committing anything extra. Pick on Pepper secures it, and it is all but a sure thing as the cap goes over.
Yeah, Libalent Supreme, not even enough members to keep that fight going, to keep the stall going, collect a little bit of extra progress. Selene, his Transcendence a little bit too late, didn't save the original 2 members that went down. Hotade, he was the weapon for Libalent Supreme. He had the Dragon Blade that needed to get a lot of kills, but unfortunately shut down very quickly by Nuns. The counter Transcendence from Kiyomi as well, very well timed to make sure Machi was kept inside that game. But you got to give it to the Rocket Punch from Nuns. That was what secured that fight for them.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. And like the fact that Hotade was already on the backline, had killed Kiyomi, he was on the cusp of the resets. But good stick by Pepper to open this one out as they take out Restia. And again, on the cusp of blowing it wide open as Kiyomi goes down as well. And suddenly Machi just kind of have to reel back, licking their wounds. They're taking some picks on the back end of it, but they are going to ultimately lose this fight and the point. Did get the percentage up past what Libalent had, but Libalent should be able to get this cap over. This is actually a really This is an okay stall out of D-Crown, but they're not going to push it as far as 80 most likely. Actually, may just start to get there now, but they're really throwing everything in the kitchen sink for what is probably not going to be a whole lot of gain. And that was also the Winston ult, but now Libalent in control of the point again. Should be able to hold on to it until they're pushing that 80-90%.
You got about a 20% buffer here where Libalent Supreme do need to catch up onto the 82% of Machi Esports. That's roughly about the time that Machi Esports got a strike here. You can't really afford to have Libalent Supreme head up into the high 90s. That's when their win condition really starts to reveal itself. For Machi, the move, it has to happen now.
It absolutely does, but they're going to be pushing that high 90 anyway. In fact, because Machi have taken their time to charge up ultimates, they're now going to be going flat into this one. And one fight will secure it for Libalent. The Dragon Blade, there we go, finally closes out on Kiyomi, but the sound barrier is going to keep everyone else safe as Hotari retreats. But Libalent still have very deep pockets here as they pick Restia. Suddenly, Machi do not have much to go on, and D-Crown is back in the back lines here. There we go. The follow-up to secure out the remaining kills. Pepper back on just to take out Kant, who is ducking about the point, and No Talk going to go as well. And that should be the secure there for Libalent. 1-0 up, very cleanly executed.
Absolutely, I think for both sides as well, it wasn't a washout from either side there. Very even fights. The point flipped over back and forth for both teams many a time there. I think the difference right at the end there, you can sort of make comparison to the middle fight of that game as well, where Hotari, he had the Dragon Blade, he got shut down by Nuns. The last time, the most recent time he did use that, didn't get shut down. You could see the resources and the time and the effort from Machi to try and chase down Hotari, who got away on something like 50 HP or even less. They didn't get that kill. They needed to get that kill and then convert onto other kills. They couldn't sort of get that chain of kills going. In fact, they just didn't really get anything at all. And for Libalent Supreme, they kind of got away with murder quite a bit there. But Machi Esports, I mean,
hey,
kind of dropped the ball.
Ball in the. Speaking of drop the ball, we just had a slam dunk here, live on air. It's real, folks.
Give him a point just for that.
Yeah, one whole point.
Start with 1% extra on the cap.
Yeah, and by the way, there was also a point there as well where Machi kind of drew it out and threw away a few ultimates. So let's see if they can kind of tidy up that side of things. And already picking up Pepper is a good way to tidy up the players. Kant now starts to open up on the rest of Libalent. Keisuke as well. And the dive is just overwhelming as Libalent. It wasn't just one and then they reel back and lick their wounds. This is going to be on the pretty much a full team wipe if it weren't for those respawns coming through for Pepper and Selene. But Machi on the point with plenty of ult charge in the pocket.
Full team wipe, and then straight on top of the camp as soon as the timer goes down. Kant got 3 kills in the middle of that. He really opened it up onto Pepper. That's what really started to get that kill chain going. And for Libalent Supreme, they couldn't find any answers. That was the complete opposite of what that final fight on Control Center looked like. And now, it's going to be Machi engaging first again.
Yeah, and this is exactly what they're after here. Kant again quick pick onto Pepper and Darrington as well. To Kiyomi of all people, why not? And this is just looking really solid for them, honestly. They are looking clean. And I said they needed to tidy it up. This is looking tidy.
This is even more than tidy. This is like dominant right now because for Machi Esports, I don't know if they've even lost any members so far. They've gotten 2 team wipes in a row. Pepper has been taken down by Kant at the start of every single fight. Something's got to change over there. Kant's now looking to get an opening pick again. Whoever it's on, it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, and he doesn't even need to go after Pepper anymore. Because of that pulse bomb, he can just wait for Selene to go floating on by, or maybe Keisuke throws it into the mix there and catches Keisuke. That's exactly what he was after. And now they just start to unleash. So Libalent already kind of trapped in this room, don't have many resources to use, haven't lost anyone else just yet, but they haven't got any trade picks either. That's a decent retreat out of them, but they are losing a lot of time.
Absolutely, 60% now on the progress bar for Machi Esports. For Libalent Supreme, doesn't really feel like they've had a real fight yet. Every time they come in, they lose a single member straight off the top due to Kant. They haven't had the initiative on any fight. They need to now get that initiative and start the next fight.
Yeah, and speaking of, they're trying here, but honestly, they're having a hard time just kind of setting up to the point itself. Pepper going down again to Kant, super unfortunate. And now Libalent have used all the resources they had just to try and get themselves to the point, and Machi still have more to go on. This is the Dragon Blade now to try and close out the fight. So they chase down Hotari. That's the reset in to pick Jasper and Keisuke. Why not picking up a cool 3K and 1 on the back end just to add insult to injury. And this is, yeah, you had the word down pat before, AVRL, absolutely dominant.
And Libalent Supreme, they haven't really committed ultimates yet either. Sorry, they have committed ultimates. Not all of them. They only have 2 left to go, but it's not the 2 key ones. Pepper going down early again. This time not even to Kant. This isn't the start you want. He's got one of your ultimates.
Okay, well, they at least got on the point, and hold on a second. Machi just kind of let that one go out from under their noses. Libalent can't actually reinforce the point, though, so what they've done is bought themselves a little bit of time, but they're going to get wiped here anyway, and are still going to have to book it to the point. It is at 99%. They will get an overtime. It won't go over instantly, but they've only just lost their last members, so the first few respawners coming in, none of it's on the point at the end of all that, and Machi tied up 1-1 in what was a much more dominant performance in the first map.
In many other scenarios, you could say that Machi overextended right at the end there because they let the point go, but actually I respect the play that they made because knowing at roughly the mid to high 90% mark, you have to be able to get quite aggressive there, prevent the other team from making a good play onto the cap itself. What they actually did was split Libalent Supreme in half. Half the members, or rather some of the members even decided to go for the cap because they had to. Trigger the overtime, get that cap over. The other part of that team had to actually deal with the members that were diving quite deep into spawn. So their team got split really hard. and they had no real win condition there. Even though they got the cap, like you sort of mentioned, Machi were in a position where they had enough members. Libalent was still respawning. There was no way they could contest.
Yeah, it was just clean. I mean, like you said, really clean, and yeah, very cleverly played. Shrewd move indeed. And again, out the gate, both teams running that same team comp now. The Tracer and Genji. Dive in from Darrington is going to be matched by D-Crown. Let's see who gets what done, as Nun's a little bit low, but Selene's the first to go down in the mix there, and now they start to close out on the members of Libalent, who could not quite close out any of the kills they'd done the groundwork for on the side of Machi. And wow, again, they do take a dive, so that's not quite as dominant as previously, but Machi's still very much ahead in that fight and going to get the point.
A similar pacing, a similar storyline as well, because for Machi Esports, it's about getting that initial pick-off, converting onto a second, third, fourth, fifth kill, and then suddenly the cap is yours. You haven't lost any members. This is exactly how Machi started on Night Market, and they want to finish it the same way they did on that map too.
And to that end, Libalent need to make sure they don't fall prey to the same play twice, as Hotani and Darrington already low, meaning they can't really go in safely for the dive, and now Nun's just kind of taking advantage of all these low health members here. I mean, it's kind of open season for Machi. Like, anyone could just dive in and pick up a kill, it seems.
And the problem here, the biggest thing I'm noticing for Libalent Supreme is they're not getting any counter trades. It's not a situation where you've lost your whole team, but actually you killed a couple members on the other team as well. Force them to respawn, force them to reposition, get their members back. That's just not the case at all, because Libalent Supreme, they haven't got a kill yet.
Yeah, and I mean, this is after they did pick up nearly
same play again.
Eaton though. That's, yeah, nicely covered actually by Jasper as they started to make that move. And what I was going to say was control center, but in any case, Libalent have what it takes. They just need to do it. Already on retreat with that Transcendence running, but this time they convert. They've actually kind of drawn Machi into a trap here and open up. This is the sort of play they were looking for, and it did actually look for a moment like Machi, we're going to be able to keep them off the point again, but this is looking to be a short closeout for Libalent. And also finishing off some ult charge in that time as well. Very nice for them. Machi still plenty to get back on this point, but Libalent finally looking a little more comfortable.
And they got it off 2 ultimates as well. Well timed and well played by Libalent Supreme. This is now them taking charge of this cap for the first time so far in 2 maps now in a row onto Lijiang Tower. And it's a best of 3 on control as well. So this is going to be their last opportunity. Machi are still pretty much far ahead though.
Pretty much indeed, but 1 kill could do it. That's a Transcendence to answer a Dragon Blade, and now Nuns opens up with his own as Hotade puts his away. No one dead just yet. There we go. Finally, Nuns able to pick that one up, but he loses his life for it. That's another great self-destruct, and honestly, this is just all Diva all the time. D-Crown still going ham in the monkey mode there, and they actually got the point cap in among all that as well, actually. So Libalent, that was really rough for them. It was on the cusp of being a hold, and then suddenly double kill out of no talk, and they lost the point in the mix.
And Machi had all the tools to get that one done. They had the Transcendence that they didn't use in the last fight, that Kiyomi got a little bit late. Nuns as well. He was holding on to that Dragon Blade that once again didn't use in the last fight. So they had the retake tools all available. Now we're sitting in a similar situation we've seen Machi and Libalent Supreme in before, which is Machi on the cusp of winning, and Libalent Supreme, they need an opening here.
They desperately need an opening here. They do not want to start the series 0-1 down when they know that they can take control maps off the top teams in this tournament. Lijiang Tower especially, that's an early Transcendence out of Selene to shore the team up as they go for this good quick turn by Jasper to eat up the Pulse Bomb. And actually that's all resources out of the count for Machi as Kiyomi gets picked off. Hotade very low, but should just be able to retreat, and there he goes. Going to be able to get out safe as the rest of the team opens up the members of Machi. They should be able to secure this point as well. Machi really stalling this one out, but they're not going to be able to reinforce. Really, this just gives ult charge over to Libalent, who now control the point and are looking to even up the score.
That's absolutely correct. As soon as you get to the 99% mark, you've actually gotten yourself into the overtime. No point to continue stalling there. You're not going to get any extra progress. If you don't have a win condition available, if you can't actually take the cap itself, that's when you want to back off. That's when you want to regroup. And for Machi Esports, probably a little slow.
And speaking of resources, the defensive ultimates will be available for Machi, and that could be all it takes. Libalent going to be relying on a huge Dragon Blade, which they don't even have yet. So eyes on Hotade to see if he can take this one home for his team, because already Machi kind of driving back Libalent, who are trying to draw them forward into a trap, but they haven't really got a trap laid. But that's both the defensive ultimates out now. They do find Darrington, and Nun's able to open up. Where is Hotade's Dragon Blade? He's only just got it, and he can't open up. He's too low, and in fact, he is now dead. Machi going to be able to get on this point. point. Someone, indeed, Darrington is going to have to charge for the points to buy the overtime, but he's not going to be able to make it in time. Misses the window anyway, and that's going to be the 2-0 reverse sweep there for Machi on Lijiang Tower.
And the most disappointing thing there for Libalent Supreme was they finished Gardens with 4 ultimates remaining. Both the support ultimates, both of the damage ultimates as well for the DPSs. So for Hatare, he had a Dragon Blade for the majority of that fight. Unfortunately, didn't find an opportunity to use it. He was pressured out extremely well. Nuns, on the other hand, and this is the play that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
That's a game-winning play. He had the Dragon Blade at the right time, found the right targets, and for Libalent Supreme, despite having the support ultimates up, just couldn't use them.
Yeah, and the thing there as well is, I kind of mentioned it, Libalent were trying to make Machi overextend a little bit, trying to draw them into, indeed, a little bit of a trap. And what actually ended up happening is they didn't have a trap. They drew them in, but there was nothing to spring, which was really, really unfortunate because that was the only play available to them, was to try and draw Machi in, have the Dragon Blade ready for that, and then open up on an overextended Machi, whose column is, a little bit spread out, clear out the supports, etc., etc. And those supports, by the way, had already used up their ultimates by that point, so Machi didn't even have anything to fall back on when the Dragon Blade came out from Hotari. It went from like 80 to 85% throughout most of that fight, and it was only during Nuns' Dragon Blade, which, by the way, started at about 70% charge at the top of that fight. It was only during that time that Hotari got his. And by the time it was over, his team was dead. He couldn't use his Dragon Blade because he was too low. And it was just really unfortunate for Libalent. Had they been able to just get a bit more damage out of Hotari, get that ultimate up, could have been a very different situation at the end there.
That was still certainly a much better map than they had on to Night Market. If that's any sort of takeaway, any sort of silver lining for the team, they were able to fight a couple of fight wins there in the middle. The main one being Kant setting up for his pulse bomb play by hiding behind the team. He got caught out this time. A couple members didn't see him, but the correct member did see him at the end of the day, and so they ended up getting that pulse from Eden way. Then they were able to find the picks onto the other members. Selene with the Transcendence as well, making sure that his team was able to engage safely and at the right time. So that was one of the good fight wins. The other one was Machi overcommitting and overstaying rather on that 99% overtime mark, which, for Libalent Supreme, again, that was a winning fight for them, but they just couldn't find it any other time. The big problems were right at the start of each of those maps, Night Market and Gardens. The first 2 fights, heavily going in the way of Machi, and when I say heavily, I mean like Libalent didn't even get a kill.
Yeah, like it was up to about 60% already by the time Libalent got on it, which was interesting because that is not quite the exact reverse, but it's close to the reverse of what happened on Control Center, where actually Libalent won the opening fight. It was then quite back and forth from there, with Libalent always just being a little bit better at the end of the day, and at the very end, their own ult management really paid off, whereas actually it's what kind of cost Machi. But here now is Night Market. We'll take a look at how that opening fight actually played out with that replay coming up. And I mean, you can see how quickly they get onto the backline. And this was a very common thing. Kant was constantly taking out Pepper in the 1v1, which left a lot of the backline exposed while Darrington and Jasper were diving.
And you can just see here, no return kills at all. And it was definitely Kant getting the kill into Pepper. That happened twice in a row. The second fight immediately following this, the same story happened again. Kant getting open kill on Pepper, then suddenly you get the steamroll and the conversions from the other side as well. You look at Gardens, very similar story. It wasn't Kant opening up every single time, but it was someone from Machi, and that's a big problem because the key thing for Libalent Supreme there was you can lose a team fight, but what are you getting in return? Are you charging ultimates for yourself? Are you able to get the return trades to force the other team into a position where they have to wait for respawns, they have to reposition safer because they know they don't have the numbers up just yet?
Yeah, and it's really hard, I will permit, it is really hard to get those return kills when it is your Tracer who is dead. It makes it harder to get that extra damage to execute on those dives, especially when the other team is diving hard enough that your supports are then going down instantly after the Tracer is dead. So, if you've got to have tanks back to keep your backline alive while the enemy team is diving really hard, your saving grace can be getting your Tracer engaging in aggressively to get return kills. So that Tracer going down, it just kind of sets the tone for that whole thing.
Let's take a look at the next replay now, a little bit further on into the Night Market fight. And mind you, Machi didn't lose a single fight here on the entirety of Night Market. Once again, Cam taking down Pepper early. This has been the storyline for the entire Night Market stage. You have ultimates on both sides. Selene did commit there. Darton committed there. Jasper did as well. The 2 DPSs, they saved their ultimates and Nuns. This is him sealing the nail, landing the last nail in the coffin for Libalent Supreme as we head towards that sort of 90% mark, where Libalent Supreme then had to make a dash for the point, and Machi kept them stuck in their base.
Yeah, so there was
some
an
of the
interest-
members anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was an interesting thing that happened early in that fight as well. A Transcendence actually came out of Selene, which was what they were wanting to use to get into the point, fight in more open ground. Once they got there, the ultimates started coming up from Machi. They could have lived through some of them, but I think they sort of realized we're actually too under-equipped. If we fight in open ground, we're right in Dragon Blade and self-destruct territory, and they couldn't actually cross that safely. So Selene sort of ended up backing up, and then they just kind of got unleashed upon in this very enclosed space where it was things like Pulse Bomb that were able to really tear them apart. So they flagged a full retreat, and that's how the Dragon Blade was able to capitalize. And unfortunately, that ultimate was just kind of used for no gain, and it was in using it that they realized they couldn't gain.
Let's take a look at the next replay now on Two Gardens. This is going to be a little bit further on. Libalent Supreme already picked up their fight win here. But, you know, for Machi, they have the tools to get this one back. It was, if I'm not mistaken, this self-destruct double kill onto both Darton and Pepper. This is when, for Libalent Supreme, they suddenly lose the ability to get back in. Hotare was low as well. They don't have enough members here. The cap goes over, and, you know, we take it all the way to 99 from here.
And the thing is, at that point, it was 3-on-3. But that's one of those moments where it depends on the three that are alive. And as it so happened, with the exception of Genji, Machi just had three far better damage dealers alive. They didn't have any healers, but everyone had plenty of health. You had a Tracer and a Winston who could go very aggressive and pick off members such as Hotare. In fact, that is how Hotare died, to the combined efforts there of Kant and D-Crown. And then you've still got the D.Va to kind of shore up the point itself, which is exactly what they did. So if, for example, Hotare had tried to go for the point itself, he would have spent a lot of time trying to 1v1 a D.Va, which isn't the nicest situation when you're a Genji. So actually, it was exactly what swung the fight, and not because it suddenly was this huge team wipe. All it really did in terms of numbers was equalize it, but in terms of who was left alive, Machi just had far more damage available, and it ended up being overwhelming.
Absolutely, and I think both Hotare and Pepper had pretty rough games on Night Market and Gardens, particularly Pepper against Kent. But then you also look at Hotare. We talk about the fact that, look, he struggled to get a Dragon Blade in there. He struggled to have really any real impact because he was pressured so much. Machi now get the next map pick as the away team. It's going to be on Numbani, so you've just lost Lee Jung to Machi. They then get the next map pick as well. Suddenly we're staring in the face of a potential 2-0 in Machi's favor.
And speaking of next map pick, it is going to be Numbani for the first hybrid. So this is interesting. I'm trying to rack my brains to recall Libalent's most recent performance on hybrid, because I do believe they have played Numbani as well. And I believe it was against Flash Wolves where they actually really struggled. And it was that kind of 5% difference thing, you know. It was that 5% longer to cap the point. It was that 5% less distance, etc., etc. And on the whole, it ends up to not getting as far and doing it with, having one less minute total to do it in. So again, this is very doable for them. This is very achievable, and they do have what it takes, but they don't quite seem to be firing on all cylinders tonight. They need to kind of fix up whatever it is that's holding them back.
So I do want to correct myself. The one map when they got against Flash Wolves was actually on King's Row, so it wasn't on Numbani either. So a couple of facts that are sort of just finalized, but King's Row was what they want, so they did in fact lose the Lee Jung Tower. But so I think that also paints a different sort of story here, because now that we are into hybrid, if I'm not mistaken, they beat Flash Wolves by getting a hold somewhere that Flash Wolves... No, so they would have capped out in the time bank section, if my memory is correct on it. It's a little bit hazy.
Yeah, that's what a week's break does to you. I don't know what it is, but it's like I can still remember like some of the specific games of season 1, but just having that 1 week's break here is just thrown me for a loop. I mean, where in the world is King's Row?
Well, somewhere in London.
Yeah.
Not even a defined place in London.
Yeah, dubiously within the greater London metropolitan area. Which is like a massive area, by the way. So, okay. In that case, let's disregard what I just said a moment ago about Numbani, because that wasn't where they played Flash Wolves. They have had a performance on Numbani against someone, like I said, I can't quite remember the team, but... That was a really distracting voice line from Torbjorn. That's why I suddenly stopped talking. I've never heard that voice line before. What's he saying no about?
This game still really pulls out a few surprises.
Every so often, I thought I'd played a lot of Overwatch. I thought I'd seen a lot of Overwatch, but there's always new things. Yeah. My point was basically Libalent could still win this.
It's definitely within the realm of possibility. Look, they took control center, and that was a fairly good one. It was very even. So now we are on to Numbani.
Not a bad rollout either. Nothing too crazy here as Machi looking to get very aggressive. The members of Libalent just kind of pulling back as best they can. Not going to lose anyone just yet, but they are kind of pulled back off the point. Keisuke only losing the turret. Oh, Darrington going down to Kiyomi is very rough. And by the way, triple DPS out for Machi. And with that extra pick there, Libalent have now lost the opportunity to just kind of pull back and then re-aggress. So the point just ends up getting ceded to Machi. Basically off the pick of that pick on Darrington.
And losing members after the cap as well. So this is interesting because for Libalent Supreme, a couple things there. They didn't really have the sort of hold going on. They didn't really make an attempt to really counterattack the other team. One of the ways you beat Machi in that sort of rollout is you actually pressure down Kiyomi on the opposite side. They didn't have Darrington do that. They didn't have Jasper get on there either. So Kiyomi had free reign. Managed to get Keisuke's turret very early, then get the kill onto Darrington, and then they lost a couple of members despite the cap going over, so they didn't even retreat properly.
That's the 90 boost out on Darrington though, and he should be able to close. Actually, yeah, there we go. It's going to be Pepper who closes out on Restia, so good open up by them. And now they just need to close out a few more. On the cusp of getting counter-killed though, and Darrington going down, they do pick D-Crown, but what this does is it does buy them an opportunity to fight further down the line, but they are also feeding a better ult charge into Machi, who should be able to overcome them in this next fight. And then Libalent are just going to have to give up some ground, I'd say.
And that was the kind of initiation of aggression that they should have had on the Camp A defense. They sort of just let Machi walk all over them. Now we're seeing, look, the ultimates you talked about, they're coming online for Machi Esports in a big way. They're about to hit 6 of them. Kart has gone into the favor of Machi. Libalent got to pull the trigger again first before Machi get in.
Yeah, and what they were wanting out of that last fight was for Machi to use up their ultimates, but they didn't, and this is what those ultimates will do. That's a 2k for Kant and Nuns each. D-Crab picking up the last 2. It's just 2 apiece. Not bad.
Libalent Supreme again, just no kills, and we actually have a situation where Machi get all the kills all in one go, which is why we can get that horn blow off. We can get that gong going again, because on all the other maps, they got 6 kills, but it was just also staggered, which is actually helping Machi Esports. The cap goes over once again. Not a lot of contest, rather, from Libalent Supreme, and they actually have the ultimates to do something this time as well.
Yeah, and a lot of it is because they lost that fight earlier on. What they'd bought with the first fight they'd taken in the Streets phase was the ability to defend before the second cap, but they kind of lost that with Machi's aggression in there. So now Libalent, they really have to pick their moment, because honestly, Machi has cycled well. That is a great way to go, but completely blocked out by the defense matrix. They finally get one off the back end of it, but double self-destruct is going to go the way of Machi, and among all that is Kiyomi opens up on what is now a separated out Libalent. A second gong sounds this game, and Libalent tried to get a bit too clever there, ended up just separating themselves.
And it almost worked. You could sort of see the pieces that just didn't quite fit in the puzzle that Libalent Supreme were trying to build. Machi Esports responded correctly. They had a little bit of a self-destruct versus self-destruct face-off, like the two mechs exploding next to each other. It's like, I'm going to explode bigger than you, or something like that. But for Libalent Supreme, it looks like they do have the options, but they're not able to execute. They're not able to complete that puzzle they're trying to do.
Speaking of execute, Kant has been on fire this game. He has always been able to hit his mark. I don't think I've seen a single pulse bomb from him miss, except for the one that got eaten. He is absolutely on fire, and that free reign is showing now as Libalent again looking really scattered in what should be their most favorable position to fight. They're finally starting to push back Machi, but honestly, unless they convert kills soon, the triple DPS will start to overwhelm them, and they have the ultimates to back it up as well, Machi. The sound barrier being a proponent of that. Nun's now opening up with the Dragon Blade. Only gets one, but he's just scared off the rest, which leaves the other members to die to Kiyomi's pressure. That's triple DPS for you. It is just unrelenting pressure on all fronts at all times. Libalent absolutely crumble on Numbani. That is a great time for Machi Esports.
The mid-air pulse bomb kill onto Darden as well, right at the end. You see it in slow motion. Just stopping any opportunity for Libalent Supreme to get on there. And the thing you have to consider when you look at Machi's lineup, triple DPS, they ran that the entire way through. What that's actually quite weak to is the counter aggression. So they have a lot of damage, they have a lot of output, they don't have a lot of defense, they don't have the healing structure that you would with the second support. So for Libalent Supreme, they gave away so much space away to Machi when they really should have been the ones initiating first. Like, I talk about them pulling the trigger first. That's exactly what they needed to do. They had a little bit of a moment where they did do that right off the top of the second cap onto Streets phase, but beyond that, they just never had initiative. Fight priority was so important for both teams, and Machi had it every time.
And the thing that's interesting in that is, my memory has come back to me, AVRL. The game they won against Flash Wolves on King's Row, part of that was their own offense. It was very strong. The other part of that was they actually really held out on the defense. And it was before Cap B. Yes, it was before the second point cap was where they were able to hold Flash Wolves until the clock ran out. And they themselves were able to push it up past that point. Not just push it up past that point, but in quick fashion as well. So they definitely still have the chops to do this, just in terms of having a strong offense, and can push it into time bank where they get another shot at figuring out what's going wrong in this defense. But what we just saw certainly was not Libalent's full potential on escort defense, or rather hybrid defense. So I want to see them hit that potential, and I do start to worry if maybe something is a little bit off with them tonight.
And you know what it is to me is, I think Libalent Supreme are a team that deals quite well against Doomfist, because one of the problems that Flash Wolves had on that King's Row was they tried to make the Doomfist Soldier work. It wasn't really a thing. They tried to swap too late. Control Center Lee Jung against Machi Esports, that was Nuns playing the Doomfist again. He had some kills in there, but otherwise couldn't make it work. Now that Nuns and Libalent Supreme, or rather Machi Esports, have completely gotten rid of that, suddenly Libalent Supreme aren't finding the openings anymore.
And once again, we got a triple DPS, but in a bit of a different incarnation here. It's going to be with the Sombra. I like the potential there to shut down the Torbjorn and the Diva, but the pressure is already good. Selene getting picked, don't quite convert onto D-Crown. Actually, as I say that, Pepper finally getting the follow up, and does so safely with Jasper kind of covering his back there. Now they're able to pressure off Machi. Machi, however, have successfully retreated, can re-aggress onto this point, and need to do so now. Here they go, No Talk leading the charge. They are aware that they haven't quite got D-Crown back just yet, so they're kind of staggering on while they wait for D-Crown, and that could cost them here. They commit, but both Divas losing the mechs now, and the cap goes over. Now this is a really bad position for Machi, who are kind of having the full retreat. Oh, the turret picking up Hotari, and that is very, very convenient saving grace. It allows Machi to successfully retreat, but really that was the best of a bad situation.
And the thing there for Machi Esports is they never truly committed to that defense. They sent a member in, they made sure Nuns was safe, but they didn't make sure they had a secondary person to keep that camp going, or rather to keep the stall going as soon as the initial player went down. So for Machi Esports, 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out the door, and unfortunately the door slammed shut.
And speaking of slam shut, that was the nano boost out from Kiyomi, but D-Crown just hasn't really converted much off it. Even Kant getting pressured out. They have only got the one pick themselves in response, and that's a good open up from Nuns to help secure a few more. But there we go. Pepper closes it out with a double pulse bomb, and Machi were already kind of on the retreat at that anyway, so that is space gained for the payload.
Unfortunately, though, payload isn't really moving. Now it's about to move, but we're sort of already post-fight. This is the sort of period in the game where Machi are respawning. The kills that Libalent got are starting to come back to them. So the cart distance needs to be very good here. Libalent Supreme never made a second hold here when Machi just capped on through. Libalent Supreme need to sort of get that same aggression rolling again that Machi had against them.
They absolutely do, but what they do have is the right ultimates for it with this EMP, and also with, oh dear, had someone else had already taken that health pack. That's unfortunate. In fact, I don't even think he'd hacked it, but Hotari opening up with the Dragon Blade anyway, despite the lack of EMP, and it pays off as he gets both supports. Needs to convert on more, too low as D-Crown smacks him down, takes him out. Now Libalent very lean on DPSs here. Selene only just rejoining the fight. The EMP could still close it out, but they need to keep Darrington and Pepper alive to secure those kills, and they are lacking Jasper's mech. They don't have the defensive capabilities to stop up Kant and D-Crown. They had to play this very carefully, if at all, and in fact, with losing Jasper, it looks like they're just going to back off and play it safe.
And as both teams trading ultimates quite evenly here, except it's not even because Machi come out ahead. They get the full defense hold. Libalent Supreme don't get any of the progress. They lose Selene quite early. The EMP would have been the weapon to really get them across the line. It may just be now. Selene just went past Kant as well, so hopefully he called that for
that was Pepper. That was Pepper.
That was Pepper.
Yeah, that confused me for a second. It was his own Tracer, but that's the EMP out, by the way, just with no follow-up as the dive comes in from Machi, and the EMP did not catch enough members. Notably, it didn't catch Kant. D-Crown does go down, though, but losing Darrington means there is no more dive pressure to come out of the Libalent squad here. Pepper just kind of throws out the pulse bomb for style points, doesn't really get anything for it, and is again embroiled in this 1v1. That was spicy. No Talk in the pilot form, taking out the other pilot Diva, and then closes off on the Tracer. Nuns going to commit this Tac Visor to secure the fight that is already just as good as secured, and that is going to be a second hold for Machi.
And so the problem there for Libalent Supreme was the opposite of the problem before that, which is the first time around they had the EMP, which they didn't use, then they used the other ultimates to try and save the fight. This time around they had the EMP, but they didn't have the other ultimates. So both fights in a row now, They've had some of the pieces there, but they can't really execute because you've just got one piece and not the other one. One part of that combo unfortunately doesn't work out for you. The EMP didn't do enough work. They needed some of the extra ults, but they had already lost that previously.
And given that they weren't able to use that EMP in that first fight they wanted to, it meant they actually stuck on the Sombra, I think, longer than they wanted. And you can see now Selene is on the Zenyatta to help them shut down D-Crown with that Orb of Discord as they get aggressive again. Kiyomi now boosts straight out onto D-Crown though, and he goes straight onto the back line. So that Orb of Discord needs to pay off. Good timing indeed on the sound barrier, keeps him alive while the rest of the team closes out the kills. And there was a complete shutdown onto Hotari. This is already shaping up to be a third hold here for Machi Esports.
And this has got very competitive second cap hold here as well, because mind you, Machi had unfortunately not much of a hold on cap A. Libalent Supreme met some resistance there, but ultimately they kept on through. Machi made some mistakes. Those mistakes are now being caught up on the cap B instead, where Libalent Supreme, it's just them hitting up brick walls time and time again. And for Machi Esports, they're not about to let that wall fall down anytime soon.
It seems that they just aren't quite able to get the opening picks that they need, don't seem to have the target selection on the dive, and indeed are struggling with the pressure that's coming out of Machi. And let's see if the Machi can just apply the same pressure again. Pulse Bomb from Pepper wide means they have kind of steered through what could have been an easy opening kill. And Cat was already pressured out. Yeah, Cat with the chase. And that is exactly what I talk about when I say pressure from Machi. The self-destruct just creates space, but it leaves Libalent largely split. And Nuns is still sat here uncontested. Libalent do not seem to be able to get on the aggressive here in the way they want, as they have to go into full retreat. Selene is throwing that ultimate out so that they can stay in the fight, but Hotari, out of the limits of that Transcendence, is going to go down to Nuns, who has the Tac Visor running now, looking to close out the fight, going to get Jasper and Helix rocking on Darrington of all things, so...
Libalent Supreme now have committed just about every single fight, but they've never had one big fight where they've saved up enough ultimates. They've really banked themselves up. They've been trying to get the card over the line every single push so far, to no effect. Machi Esports, despite having no ultimates, whether they're ahead, whether they're behind, they're able to get the picks out when they need to. The Camp versus Pepper battle, that's been entirely one-sided so far in Camp's favor.
Yeah, Pepper has really struggled to have an impact on this game. You're right, Kant absolutely keeping him down, and that also means Nuns has been getting free reign, but now this Dragon Blade could be what they need to push it over the line. But Darrington, quick on the follow-up. Hotari is able to get out this time around. They're on the cart, and here comes the open out as they pick off D-Crown as well, and have dealt with Machi's pressure this time successfully. In fact, Hotari is struggling to even find targets to kill because of how well they were able to deal with that pressure. They can still push this to a time bank situation, but that clock is running thin.
And one of the few times now for Libalent Supreme, they get the opening pick up. Pepper doesn't die early to Kant. Hotari somewhat finds some success with the Dragon Blade, but a nice boot by Restia really made sure that Machi got out with the rest of the members, because Hotari wanted to chase. He couldn't find anybody because A, his team was killing the people, still stalling the Kant, and also B, Machi made sure they fell out correctly.
So here we go. Now Libalent are able to kind of take the priority in the fight and get aggressive themselves. Good pulse bomb onto Nuns to secure that as they pressure back Kiyomi. This is what they need. A great follow-up by Pepper and Darrington to secure that out. And actually, they weren't moving the payload in among all that, so a lot of it got completely stalled up. That is super unfortunate because they had actually beaten Machi back as far as the spawn point. Now Machi will get a full round of respawns.
I think No Talk might have just won that for Machi Esports, potentially getting this full hold in there. They get the full wave of respawns. That's extremely important. Had No Talk not gotten the stall in there, Libalent Supreme, this card would have already been capped out.
They have to win another fight here, Libalent, and it is still doable to get them to time back. But if they don't, they could just get beaten back and not cap it out at all. But that's a great open up with D-Crown and Restia out. And those one of those very close to an ult indeed. Sound barrier now for Libalent to secure the last end of the fight as Pepper Pulse Bomb in to keep everyone caught in the base. No one seems to be able to get on this card for Machi, and that is indeed going to go to time bank. Huge disparity in the clock there. Only 1 minute for Libalent and 4 minutes 40 for Machi, but they have kept their hopes alive.
And that was important for Libalent Supreme right at the end there, not just because they're going to time bank, but, you know, finishing the map altogether, making sure that they bounce back from a lot of very early fight losses, from a lot of very difficult situations where they couldn't break past the defense line of Machi. When you get into third, that was a very easy third compared to everything else that we've seen. Second, the Streets phase should not be that difficult. Most teams do not struggle on the Streets phase. Most teams struggle on cap number 3. That's actually where Libalent Supreme had their best run. They had a great team fight, despite No Talk holding that one up and stalling the Kant. They actually didn't let that phase them. They had enough momentum to push on through, had the ultimates to get the job done, and finish regardless. So, good showing right at the end there. I think you're looking for signs of life from this team. It's not all doom and gloom. They have the ability to win still.
I think that is a completely fair assessment. And in terms of ability to win, we have actually seen this team on Time Bank before, I believe. And if I recall correctly, we talk about this a lot with Time Bank, playing to the condition, which is the fact that it's Time Bank. I mean, it sounds really silly to say it, but progress on the cart is king. It matters more than anything else. And if Libalent on this attack can set a good distance, then this is very achievable.
The win condition here for Libalent is to actually just cap out. If they can cap out, that's really as much as they can be expected to do within 1 minute, because Machi, at about 4:47, you're expecting them to definitely cap out here. So Libalent Supreme, you cannot have anything less than a full cap.
Yeah, you're right. They absolutely must cap, and then it's all about distance. So with that in mind, Celine a little low, but they are alive. That is crucial. They need to close out a kill onto Machi. They're going to get on the point, which means they kind of force Machi to attack the point themselves.
Very passive from Machi.
It is indeed very passive, but Pepper going down to rest his turret. That's super unfortunate, and Hotari getting pressured out. Needs to be careful not to suffer the same fate. Leaves Libalent split, and now Machi are able to get aggressive. And with less than 20 seconds left, they got a third, but they're going to have to beeline for this.
And the timing of those kills is so important, because when you kill them around the 20-second mark, you have now 20 seconds where you still have to wait for respawns. Libalent are not in position. They just got to go directly for the cap. And I don't think Libalent are going to be prepared to go for this, because Machi,
Who's even
they're
on
set up
it?
and they're prepared for this.
Oh, able to get the overtime there as they charge on with Darrington, but they need to get the kills. That's what counts. Trying to get the pressure onto Kant now as the rest are struggling to regroup onto the point. They close out on Kant. That is crucial. But Celine going down as D-Crown has this nano boost on him. They're starting to close out, though. That's a good number of kills there. Losing Jasper's mech is going to make it harder to do with D-Crown. Yeah, Resti has absolutely gone off, and wow, on the back end of that, that is an absolutely heartbreaking way for that to close out. But they could still hold. They could hold below 40%, which is what match you need to beat. It's harder, but it isn't over.
It's certainly not over, but it is also, I would go as far as to say nigh impossible, because you look at the original A attack from Machi, it was smooth. One attempt, and they got it in the bag off one attempt. And for Libalent Supreme, they kind of look like a non-factor there. So for Libalent Supreme as well, I want to talk about the proceedings of that Time Bank attack, because Machi played it very passively. I understand why they're doing that. It makes sense, because they waited until roughly the 20-second mark to go in. They got the kills quite late. By getting kills quite late, you actually stop the attacking team from building those ultimates within 1 minute and then coming back on time. You see how Libalent Supreme had to rush for the cap rather than set up and make a proper attack coordinated as a team. Now for Libalent Supreme, Machi gave them an opening because they played passive. That was Libalent Supreme's opening to actually initiate a fight, get very aggressive positioning that they were looking for, and just kind of squeeze Machi out of their own defense, which is kind of what they did on their original attack through anyway. But this time around, they just couldn't do the second part of it.
Yeah, exactly. There are a couple of factors at play there. One was not being able to shut down Restia's turret, which they were able to do on their initial attack. And honestly, I would have called that patient out of Machi above all else. So let's see. With 4 minutes 45 on the clock, they have the time to be similarly patient.
So I'm looking for pressure onto Kiyomi here. That's going to be absolutely key. Machi going to do the same thing that won them Cap A last time. Let's get Kiyomi set up on the opposite high ground, make a very aggressive play with the other members onto the backline of Libalent Supreme. For Libalent Supreme, control that ground, and they are doing that so far.
Yeah, good move up by both Jasper and Darrington to do that, which means Machi wrap around the fast side instead. And Libalent need to not fall prey to the same trick twice, but already lose Jasper's mech as Machi just kind of hit the go button. They do get a counter trade in the form of Kant, but already they are struggling. Kiyomi forced off though.
They need a kill.
That's crucial. They do need the kill though, and they haven't got it. They've only got No Talk's mech, and they did kill Kant earlier. They do have the closer reinforce, but Kiyomi's still alive, and he is still untouched. Hotari needs to get a lot done, but he's getting shut down now by No Talk and Nuns, and that should be Machi all over this point. Who is even here from Libalent? Darrington charges for it, but doesn't touch it. 2-0 up now for Machi.
And Machi once again getting it off the first attempt. Was it as easy as first time around? Absolutely not. Did Libalent Supreme learn? They absolutely did. Unfortunately, they didn't learn quick enough. They had sort of the right idea there. They sort of denied that top ground, similar to what was said. Kiyomi got definitely pressured out, but they didn't get the kill. You need guys like Hotare getting his resets off kills like Kiyomi, then snowballing onto other members. You need guys like Pepper able to pick up kills on Kiyomi, then blinking onto other targets, cleaning them up as well. It just didn't happen, unfortunately. Hotare, couple kills at the end there, not enough to save his team.
And I want to go back to this notion of 5% difference. By the way, the fight coming up in the play of the game being that one where like everyone got 2 kills apiece. But it's that 5% thing. And the thing that's starting to be the case by the looks of it for Libalent is they are 5% behind every single team. And it's this thing of like playing to the level of your opponent, but not quite being better than them. And that's really unfortunate because you'd think, well, if you're only a little bit worse than Flash Wolves and that's why you lost that series, then surely there are teams in the standings that you should be better than. But it seems that no matter who they're playing against, they do just execute that little bit less cleanly. I mean, on the whole, I would say this was a weaker showing than what they had against Flash Wolves. Yeah. And I mean, you saw that across the board. Kant was constantly going off. Pepper was shut down. Nuns had free reign. Hotade absolutely didn't. Dayaratin kept diving and dying. D-Crown kept diving and getting kills. All across the board, the members of Machi, on an individual basis, were executing and finishing the job where Libalent were not. And now on Assault, they are strong on Assault, I will give them that. But if that's the way they're going to play, if it's the same thing again, then this is going to be a 3-0 for Machi.
Well, we talk about the way that teams actually execute the plans that they have. And for Machi, time and time again, they are able to fight in the fights they're looking for. They are able to find the picks they're looking for. So you get to a situation right at the end there in the time bank where Kiyomi, 30 HP away from dying, doesn't pick up the, doesn't get killed. That's the difference because the other way around, Machi does get the kill. And that's when Nuns gets the reset, he pops off. That's when guys like Kant as well, he's able to chase down Pepper despite Pepper picking up a health back, he's able to get the kill and then convert on to other kills as well. That's what Libalent Supreme are not able to do, and it is what is setting Machi apart from them.
Yeah, and it's just really rough. The thing that's getting me about this is, I said it earlier tonight, it feels like Libalent are also just not quite firing on all cylinders. And we've seen the games where Pepper and Hotade are able to go off. By the way, we'll just jump into a replay here. So this was in their own attack here, Machi. They were pretty much not stopped up at all. This is the closest they got to stopped up. And this is like a tale of 2 self-destructs because at the end of the day, not only does No Talk get a kill with his, he also creates space for his team to go aggressive, while Libalent were using their self-destruct to try and buy time and stop the onslaught from Machi so they could regroup. The fact that it just got straight countered by another self-destruct should really tell you the difference in individual execution.
And I actually quite like Hotate's play there because they went for the nanovisor play on the back line with the flank coming up from the top flank going on the back, but you see bits and pieces of what Libalent Supreme are trying to achieve. You understand and you say, okay, that's actually not a bad play. I complimented, I said, I like this play. No Talk responded immediately, had a good matrix just in time, managed to just have enough resource to be able to shut down Hotade. When we talk about the 2 self-destructs as well, and it was everything that Libalent Supreme were trying to do, kind of doing it, but just not being able to finish the job.
Yeah, exactly.
And for Machi, they are able to finish the job almost every single time.
Exactly, and you can't help but feel, you know, in that alternate universe where Libalent were able to execute that just that little bit better, they use that self-destruct, they are able to safely retreat, they give themselves the space, they regroup, and then they attack a scattered Machi. It could be a completely different situation. Indeed, it could be the beginning of a 3-4 minute long defense like what Machi did to them. To their credit, they did cap it in their own offense, and we'll actually see, actually this is going to be Machi's closing out the game itself. So 40.3% was all they had to beat here. And really, like you said, Libalent learned after that first attack. They did their best to deal with Kiyomi, were even able to pressure him out, but it is that 5% execution as represented by the 5% health remaining. Not getting that extra bit of pressure on Kiyomi to secure the kill allowed him to retreat and then come back in the fight. Meanwhile, Libalent and Machi were just kind of brawling on the point and going roughly even. And then when that third DPS was able to rejoin the fray, that was when Machi were able to close it out. And it wasn't Kiyomi especially getting the kills, but the extra pressure applied by Kiyomi was allowing Nuns to pick up the kills.
The other thing you sort of noticed in that replay that was pointed out quite well is you actually look at where Hotade and Pepper were. They weren't even focusing the same targets as well. So you want to talk about picking up kills, you want to talk about focus, that's exactly how you're going to pick up the kills. You have players who are going to work together, tanks with the Tracers and Genjis together. Hotade and Pepper, unfortunately, they weren't able to put their damage to actually secure onto anyone. This is why guys like Kiyomi get away on 30 HP, find a health pack, come back in with a heal pad, because no one's able to get him down. Where's the communication that says, okay, he's on 30 HP, Pepper can blink after him, chase him down, the same way that Camp does to Pepper on the other side. That's what makes the difference. Unfortunately, Libalent Supreme, they're just missing a few of the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, and I was going to say exactly that, you know, compare and contrast to Kant, because it seemed that every time someone got low, Cant was making a point to follow up on them. And I think in the 1 or 2 cases where it wasn't Cant, D-Crown was going after them. Didn't matter who it was. Didn't matter if it was the supports in Selene and Keisuke. Didn't matter if it was the DPSs just barely scraping away with their lives. Someone was following it up and having the confidence to go in, close out the kill, and not letting someone get away, whereupon they can lick their wounds and regroup and then come back in, allows you much more space to play with. You get the team wipe instead of having the team come back and having to fight your way through them again, is so much better. Even if you would be able to win that second fight after that team is regrouped, the difference in time is staggering. And it was the difference that existed at the end of that first part where we went into time bank. It was to the tune of about 4 minutes.
And I think the big difference there, when we look at Numbani as a whole, you look at every single point that the teams played on. Streets phase was the penultimate area that really changed things for both teams. That's when Machi really made their stand. That's when Libalent Supreme really smacked their heads against the wall because they couldn't get past Machi time and time again. We talk about some of the fights where they have the Dragon Blade and they have another ultimate plus the EMP. Selene dies with the EMP. They commit anyway. They try and save the fight. Look, Atari even gets a couple of kills, but Machi, they have a couple ultimates in response, and their ultimates are worth more in that scenario because they win. They get to hold on to the defense. The committed ultimates from the attackers, they have to reset entirely. Then you come back, you EMP, but this time around, you don't have the tools that you had last time. And every single attack for Libalent Supreme, they were just missing that extra little bit.
Absolutely seems to be the case. And it is that little bit and little bit and little bit all added up that has so far resulted in them being 0-2 down in the series. But the series is not over just yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Map number 3 is going to be coming up very, very soon. Assault's going to be the pick. It is going to be Libalent Supreme on their last leads. We'll find out what that is after this break. Welcome back to OPC Season 2. We're about to head into Map 3 of the series. Machi Esports taking on Libalent Supreme. 2-0 the scoreline so far. Assault's going to be next, and it will be the last opportunity now for Libalent Supreme, who, by the way, are still sitting on 0 match wins. We talk about Machi as a potential team they can beat. So far, not looking like the case.
Yeah, we have to be honest and say this is looking really rough for Libalent. And I'm going to be honest as well. I feel like in the whole OPC so far, this has actually been their weakest showing, which is unfortunate for an...
Wow, they did play Ardion. Let's not forget about that one.
But that's the thing. I would have even called that a stronger showing. It's actually just that Ardiant, compared to Machi here, are just like that much better of a team. But the thing is, like, I feel this is unfortunate for a number of reasons. The first is just strictly that they are 0-5. You know, they've had all these good performances, but it doesn't count if it doesn't reflect in wins. They are on the cusp of going 0-6, which would mean they have to win their series against, I believe they still have Mega Thunder to play this weekend. Otherwise, they will not pick up a win this entire round robin. And ultimately, I feel like that's the thing. Like, if they don't pick up a single win this entire round robin, it's going to mean they basically have to go undefeated to make top 4 at the end of this all. And Libalent naturally draw comparison to Sun Sister and Detonator Gold, the 2 former Japanese teams from Season 1, because they are themselves from Japan. But this is a much, much better team than those 2 teams. The overall level of competition is just that much greater. That is reflected in the fact that Machi are sitting in the bottom 3, whereas previously they have been able to be in the top 4 of this tournament. But again, if they don't get wins, then it is just going to naturally draw that comparison to those other 2 teams that went completely defeated.
And unfortunately, you know, you have to make that comparison because the line for Libalent Supreme that very much kind of describes this is new team, same Japan. And that's a kind of a difficult thing to say because, you know, you don't necessarily want to go back to the results of those 2 teams who had a very rough run through OPC Season 1. Now Libalent Supreme in a different kind of tournament environment where, like you said, every other team has stepped up as well. Libalent Supreme, look, they're a good team because they are better than those teams that came before them. But so far, not good enough. And for Machi Esports, the distance is still very much there.
And that's the reality. As much as the comparison may be unfair in that if Libalent were to play Sun Sister and Detonator, I guarantee you they would win every single time. At the same time, if they don't win anything at all, if they finish bottom of the standings in this first round robin and potentially in the tournament as a whole, none of that's going to mean anything. None of that means anything at all if the team does not push this into wins, does not avoid relegations.
And the thing about this match even now is you're kind of expecting Libalent Supreme to be taking maps off of Machi here. You definitely want to, if you're not going to be taking a match win against Machi, you should at the very least be taking map wins. I know they got Control Center, but they need to get the whole of the Lijiang Tower map. Now we've got Nambani out of the way. Horizon Lunar Colony, this is a potential win for them if they can get it onto the board. Look, you've already beat Flash Walls on a map, that was King's Row. You surely should be able to take something off of Machi as well. I actually think for a team like Libalent Supreme, if they finish 0-7 in the first round robin, they're very likely now out of the contention for top 4 altogether.
And that would be, in fact, the pinnacle of unfortunacy, as it were, but Horizon Lunar Colony has been their pick. They are now on it, and this is their chance to turn it all around, or at the very least, walk away from this with a number of map wins in the back pocket.
So this is the difference now I want to point out from Machi, because Kant is the one playing the Doomfist, and Nuns is playing the Soldier, so it is the Soldier Doomfist composition. Is Kant going to have the same impact on Doomfist as he's had so far onto Tracer, which has been very high?
And Libalent out the gate already. Not going to be running a Doomfist of their own, by the way, but they have had fairly strong showings on this map. But unfortunately, with that sleep, they aren't really able to protect their backliners. And Kant is just kind of unopposed right now. They need to sort of back it up a little bit and not let anyone else go down on the retreat. They do so safely.
Smart moves by Libalent Supreme. They lose 2 members and they just smartly back off there. Don't want to overcommit or anything. The big issue for this team so far, every single map we've played, every single fight, is in those initial openings for every single map, they are always losing. They are always losing a member early, always forced to respawn, always forced to regroup. We've yet to see Libalent Supreme take the reins right at the start. Man,
Kiyomi is just keeping these guys down. 2 sleeps plus a bio grenade to stall them up, but this is the aggression they're after as they trade Nuns for Keisuke. They'll be happy to take that because now Kant has got a lot of work to do, and Libalent are finally able to execute on the dive as they pick up Kiyomi as well. They do lose Selene in among the mix, but unless D-Crown, who is already low, pulls out something insane, it's looking like Libalent should be able to set themselves up on this one. Kant is the only one still in this fight for Machi in terms of DPS, and finally going to go down to the likes of Pepper there. That is the follow-up that Libalent have been lacking so far. So already looking much stronger on Horizon Lunar Colony here as they look to cap point A.
And you can tell that was competitive because for one of the few times so far in this meeting between the two teams, Libalent Supreme are able to make the trades in scenarios where usually they don't make any trades, they just die. They're able to get return kills, and so far they might actually be able to cap this one out. We're very close.
This is a contest out of Machi, and I was going to say, I felt like that was ill-fated the moment they went in. They went in with less resources on the whole than Libalent. Libalent did have to commit those resources, so Machi have stopped the snowball in a sense, but at the same time, all they really did was burn down the clock a little bit and gave the other members of Libalent a huge amount of ultimate charge. Plus, they don't mind using the Dragon Blade because they want Hotari on that Doomfist anyway.
Well, for Libalent Supreme, you know, they have a little bit of momentum here. I do want to say they kind of slowed down in their push. They didn't push onto B straight away. Machi Esports still got ultimates to use here, so very much and very likely still going to be able to hold on.
Should just be the wraparound here from Pepper as they aggress onto the high ground. This is going to force Machi to commit something. They do so in the form of the Nano Visor, but he's just getting beaten back by Darrington, and this whole shebang is going to run out before he can start affecting the fight. They haven't closed out kills in that time, though, so they have successfully drawn out ultimates, which is good news, but they haven't reflected that in progress on the point. Libalent should be happy enough to take this on the chin and back off. Try again. Could have gone a little bit better. Could have gone a little bit worse.
Absolutely could have got. We've seen it go worse many a time for Libalent Supreme, so they were able to once again get trades. So this has now been an improvement off of the other maps that we've seen, where Libalent get wiped this time around. They're able to get kills on the backside as well. So they get ultimate charge. They are able to affect what Machi do here, put them on the back foot. Now they just have to play the third game. They got 4 minutes and 55 seconds to get this done. Get a fight where they can cap a third, move on to a second third, then cap it out completely.
And they burned all the ultimates that Machi had over them after they had exhausted their own capping point A, which is kind of what they need if they're playing for thirds here. In fact, the self-destruct is all that's available, but it's all going to come down to execution. Good pulse bomb stick onto Restia is that exact execution as they're looking to close out on Nuns as well.
That's
great follow-up. Hotari and very deep going to separate out D-Crown. Wants to close out that kill. Needs to be careful, and indeed does get it. No Talk does trade one back, but this is looking to be a third unless the self-destruct is crazy here. It is not going to be crazy. They're keeping down the members now of Machi as they come in for the respawns. That's going to amount to a second third for them here. That is very nice for Libalent. Suddenly Machi are on the back foot. They're kind of trickling on. D-Crown with the Primal Rage can stall this one out, so they will get a full round of respawns, but there is still the opportunity for Libalent to win it here and now. Kant, though, closing out the kill. Much needed, and really just barely going to stop up Libalent shy of that cap. 98.1%. Look, all they needed to do for play for thirds, was play for thirds. Now they only need 1/3.
And they're so far ahead than they should have been. I think for Machi Esports, one Machi were expecting that short break in between maps 2 and 3 is exactly what Libalent Supreme needed to rejuvenate themselves, to get that confidence back, because now they are in the sort of space where not only are they getting trades, they're actually winning fights, and winning fights fairly resoundingly as well. That last one was all Libalent Supreme. We talk about them not able to pick up the kills and secure the kills in Numbani. They absolutely turned that around for this map, and they are doing that now.
Machi used all their significant resources, stalling that out and trying to turn the tide. So Libalent now have an ultimate advantage again. This is going to be tricky for Machi. Again, it all comes down to execution. And speaking of, the Maywall separated out Hotari's team from him as he went in for the dives. They're just going to have to back up. And actually, Machi taking good advantage of that semi-retreat out of Libalent are going to get a bunch of kills here on the route. This is very nicely done for Machi. It's going to give them some much-needed ult charge and is going to even up the tables just a little bit.
Now, Libalent Supreme, just reminding you, you can never compliment them just too early. They just got to make sure, keeping you honest, making sure there's still the Libalent Supreme that you remember in this game. So unfortunately, look, that was, you just said the word execution. Then you see Hotate there really have... He wasn't sure what he wanted to do there. Just a little bit of hesitation. Looked like he wanted to get the seismic slam onto Nuns, then decided, okay, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to die. Dies anyway. Libalent Supreme really fall apart. It's the first time they have fallen apart so far on this map, at least.
And this time around, he's going to have to use the Meteor Strike just to stay alive as the Nano Boost goes out onto Kant on the other side of that Doomfist 1v1. But he goes down to Jasper. Nicely handled as Hotari stays alive, getting busy on the backline with the sound barrier now to keep him alive. That is a nice Blizzard, but all it's going to do is zone. And, oh, that is big news for Libalent Supreme. Read all about it, and that should be the secure out of the remaining third. 2 minutes remaining on the clock. Not a bad time for Libalent, and all they need to do now is hold out on either point A or B.
And that was an explosive finish, and they just had only a little bit of a blemish in that entire attack. Look, they had the opening, which was a little bit difficult. They lost 2 members early, didn't lose any of the other members. So in terms of, if you're going to lose a fight, that's a clean way to lose a fight. They had a very good run through for the remainder of that map, and a little bit of a strange moment in the middle of Camp B there with Hotari going down, the rest of the team falling apart.
Yeah, they had a hiccup.
But otherwise, look, that was fairly solid from Libalent Supreme, and you can certainly use that as a benchmark for what this team is capable of doing. In fact, the mistakes that they have made, those are fixable within a short period of time as well. Certainly in the turnaround time of one map, I think they can actually do that. So can Libalent Supreme actually hold out Machi here? It's certainly within the realm of possibility.
And I'll be honest, I wouldn't even be surprised if Hotari's death there. Part of it was he got separated off by the May wall. I wouldn't be surprised if actually Libalent had anticipated that Machi would change off the May back onto something else. And I mean, that would not at all be an unprecedented thing to assume. And that was then well reacted to when they realized they were mistaken. They didn't fall prey to the same mistake twice. Already, Libalent are looking better than the first 2 maps. And I will also say, this isn't their best either. They can still go further.
I want to say on the flip side as well, one of the questions before we got into this was, is Kant going to have the same impact on the Doomfist as the Tracer? Right now, I don't think so.
Certainly not.
Because he's finding kills here and there, but he's not getting those explosive openings against Pepper. He's not able to chain a massive amounts of kills like we saw on 9 Market and Lee Jung, just 3 in a row right after one after another. Good Pulse Bomb 6 as well. He just doesn't have that level of impact that he has on the Tracer. So now that he is back on the Tracer, we're going to see Machi take control of the game once again.
By comparison, Hotare's Doomfist has been on fire so far. Nuns is actually going to go back onto the Doomfist again, was hovering on that Soldier and also that Genji for a while there. So let's see if Hotari remains the superior Doomfist, indeed the Doomier Fist.
So far, good movements by Machi. Libalent Supreme a little bit slow in the rotation here, so they're not going to be able to get aggressive plays of the Libalent Supreme.
This is looking a little tricky, actually. Hotari wasn't able to go in the way he was expecting. Yeah, this is a boxing match indeed, and Nuns kind of comes out the better for it, and Steakcrown has already been shutting down that back line. The wraparound from Libalent just kind of fell to bits there. They really got cut off and isolated.
And now this is Machi definitely taking control. So again, very good early movements, very quick movements as well. Libalent Supreme slow in the rotation. They weren't able to stop Machi from getting inside the small room. Usually when you go inside that room, it is a little bit of a death trap. You see how Flash Wolves play around that. They play that situation very, very well. For Libalent Supreme, they just couldn't get the positioning. And look, you have Nuns taking down Hotari in the Doomfist 1v1 as well. We talk about the fact that Machi have been overpowering Libalent Supreme on a number of the 1v1s. Certainly Kant versus Pepper, now also Nuns versus Hotari.
Interestingly, because of how that played out, Machi actually don't have a huge ultimate advantage here, so they probably can't snowball this one out. Do just kind of have to play for thirds, but they absolutely have the time to do so. 6.5 minutes remaining.
And both players going on to Soldier as well, which I definitely agree with. Soldier much better for this camp than Doomfist is, but a lot of the fight is happening in the entryway. So far it's kind of good for Libalent Supreme because they've kept the action off the point.
Yeah, and no one's really died yet either. They've just traded what few ultimates they do have. So yeah, absolutely good for Libalent as the self-destruct going to finally open the gate for them, having exhausted some of the resources that Machi did have in the form of that self-destruct. Machi have been able to charge up some key ultimates. Yeah, great boostio indeed. And actually securing out some kills now as Nuns, who had kind of gone untouched. And my goodness, Machi just kind of opening up on the back end of this one now. Should be able to secure themselves a third.
That's a lot of kills.
Yeah, Libalent had steered through the worst of it, but they didn't actually close out on the DPS members.
I'll tell you what,
this is really rough for them now.
As much as we joke about the boostio, Restia got 2 kills in the middle of that. Now Nuns are set up on the high ground as well. Tech-wise are ready to go. Libalent Supreme, look, they're just staggering themselves out of this cap. They're just coming on one by one. I don't know if they can do this.
How is Kant securing all of these kills? Who is shoring them up on their way out of the spawn? They finally isolate off No Talk and D-Mech him, but they're not getting kills anyway. Celine gets picked off. It is just Hotari having no impact. He finally goes down. It's only Pepper, and that was an absolute slam dunk for Machi. That was a complete misfire for Libalent on that point B defense, and it has cost them this series.
Oh, not quite yet. I do believe time bank is still up for grabs for both teams, so
wow.
Not really
that
there
just
yet.
goes to show that misfire was so bad, I actually forgot they'd capped out.
The game, look, Jeff Kaplan's like watching from his computer at home. He pushes the button, there's just no time bank.
No.
We're finishing it right here.
Sorry.
The game ends when I say it ends. But
I would feel honored if Jeff Kaplan was like watching this specific game, like deciding, like, I like to think he does that for all Overwatch games at all time. Like,
yeah, he can access anybody's screen.
Kind of like the
anytime.
architect in the Matrix. He's got all these screens up of every game of Overwatch ever, and he like back when they did coin flip, that was him.
He physically flipped
He
a
was
coin
flipping a coin
every time.
for each, like,
He physically
if you see Jeff Kaplan in real life, that dude's thumbs are buff. All that season 1 coin flipping.
All right, but we're coming back to the match a little bit here. I do want to speak to Kant's ability because the question was raised: how effective, you know, what is the impact that Kant has on Tracer versus Doomfist? We saw him on Doomfist, got some kills in there, was good, nothing really to write home about. As soon as he goes back on the Tracer, look at that string of kills he got there right at the end. It was 3 or 4 kills. We talk about him getting that kind of string of kills on maps like Libalent Tower. He gets them here as well. His impact is immediately felt, and no one feels it harder than Libalent Supreme.
And something Libalent have been struggling to do in general as well, by the way, is shut down Soldier players. It's not just Kiyomi or Nuns, it is Soldier play in general. And to their credit, Machi have been positioning their Soldiers very well, very stably.
This is nice.
But yes, this is indeed nice. But as I say that, the trade kills come in. So this is really just all DPS on the side of Libalent. They are executing, but they need to shut down Kant because he and Nuns could still blow this one wide open. Hotari needs to pick those ones out, but he gets picked himself. That is a lot of time already run off the clock for Libalent. Kant finally going down to Pepper. If Libalent stay in this, they might just end up running down their own clock.
Well, both teams are just struggling for respawners now. It's a battle between who can reinforce faster, and if we're going to talk about that, it's going to be Libalent reinforcing faster every single time. Machi just further away. If Libalent Supreme can get on this camp faster, they're going to be able to take this, but they need to continue the trades because now we're not seeing kills from them anymore.
Yeah, that's D-Crown and Nuns reinforcing, and they are the ones who are able to kind of beat back the tide. Not even a third for Libalent in that, who went all in on trying to force out that cap. And like I said, they may have just cost themselves and run down their own clock here, because now that sound barrier, sorry, that tactical visor, I do not understand how I get those 2 ultimates mixed up, is going to help close this one out. A great meteor strike onto Hotari as well means Kant looking to secure this one, and Libalent now very lean on the time factor.
And you got to compliment Kant and Nuns again, because those are the 2 members, like you sort of mentioned, despite Libalent Supreme getting very even trades, the members they were not killing with the DPSs on Machi's side. So the statement was said, look, Machi, can they turn this one around because they have DPSs alive? That is exactly what they did. And when Libalent Supreme came in with reinforcements, they weren't able to continue the trades going any further.
All right, now with only 15 seconds remaining, the RB is going to be able to get onto the point, but they need a similarly strong opening. But that's the way you do it, as they pick off those 2 DPSs we were talking about. A little bit unfortunate for Pepper there to go down to the counter trade, but that was actually taking up the time of Machi's supports, which means D-Crown, ulting as he is quite isolated, gets put to sleep as well, as No Talk was able to get picked off. So Libalent should be able to secure themselves this point as they close out these last few kills, keeping their hopes alive.
And both Anna's just getting a lot of sleep dubs, but it's going to be Libalent Supreme.
Everyone's very tired.
Should be not a lot of oxygen on the moon, right? You're going to get sleepy.
In that 3-minute break between maps 2 and 3, Libalent, like you said, kind of had a power nap. And actually, it's just because Kiyomi is great at landing sleep dubs.
Well, there's certainly no time to nap anymore. 20 seconds left to go for Libalent Supreme. You're going to be in a situation where 1 tick is preferable here. Anything less is probably going to spell the doom for you.
And speaking of Doom, they are actually going to have those crucial ultimates out of the DPSs. That's a hot early pick out of Hotare, who is now very close to the Meteor Strike. They need to close out a few more, and Self-Destruct is going to send them all packing for a moment, but they're still very much in this as Hotare closes off No Talk before he remechs. Now they pick D-Crown. That's that first third you're talking about. They're going to get a second one for good measure by the looks of it, and Machi is still reinforcing. They're struggling to do so as Nuns finds nothing with his tactical visor, goes down, as does Kant for a second time, and my goodness gracious me, in time bank, Libalent are going to get the double cap out.
And they did what they could not do on Nimbani, and that was so critical from Libalent Supreme, because for Machi Esports, had they defended that, this would have been a lot more winnable for Machi. Now we may just see a 3rd time bank. In fact, I'm expecting a 3rd time bank because Machi have a lot of time to play with. But what were the issues that Libalent Supreme had against Machi earlier on? Failure to take down Kant, failure to control Nuns. They did both of those things right at the end.
And indeed did them on what was the successful fight for point A, by the way. So they did that about 3 times in a row, strictly speaking, from capping point A all the way through to capping point B. So absolutely fixing up their mistakes. I feel like, if you do it once, it's a one-off. if you do it 3 times in a row, it is looking like they're starting to get a handle on what's going wrong.
And this is the team that we mentioned have this ability to sort of learn very quickly. These are the kind of mistakes that I kind of talked about earlier on that said if they can sort of fix these issues up, they should look a lot more competitive in this series and surely be able to pick up a map as well. In fact, that's still definitely within the realm of possibility.
Totally.
They had a really good run despite Machi's incredibly good attack. If Libalent Supreme had just a little bit better of a defense, especially on that B, we could see something different. But Cant's gone now back onto the Tracer, so it does seem like for Machi Esports, the strategy for them is Doomfist Soldier on the defense and then Tracer Doomfist on the attack, and they are so much better on the attack because of it.
Yeah, and it is on that point B that they've tended to swap over onto the Soldier. This is interesting. Hotari is trying to listen out outside here. Going to try and wrap around on the backside, and they're opting into a Soldier Genji, not something we see out of them a lot. So let's see how they execute this as the wraparound in from Hotari. Celine able to stay alive. That is crucial. But Machi are on the point. As Hotari gets picked along with Celine, things are indeed happening. As suddenly Machi just kind of open up, and that flank again from Libalent, and it was Hotari on the Doomfist last time around, has completely misfired. It seems that all they're really doing is putting themselves at a numbers disadvantage that Machi are reading and taking advantage of.
And we look at Libalent Supreme, and you know, despite all of the miracles that they seem to be able to pull out, despite all the fight wins that maybe they shouldn't even win, that they can win, every time you see Machi, especially on this attack, just so dominant. They just walk over the Cap 8 defense from Libalent Supreme. Only one trade. That's better than a lot of the other maps we've seen out of Libalent versus Machi so far. But is it going to be good enough that Libalent can actually hold on to this and not lose Horizon again?
Now, similarly, not many ultimates available for Machi, and they have swapped Nuns back onto the Soldier, so they don't have any of that Doomfist charge they built up. So, Libalent should be able to get some ults up. Good pick onto D-Crown is going to hold Machi at bay for now, and that is so crucial because it was in that exact situation last time that actually Libalent ended up getting capped out by Machi. So they've kind of bought themselves some crucial time to get the ult economy going.
Yeah, there's a lot of time to burn down as well for Machi Esports. 4 minutes and 17 seconds now remaining. This is very comfortable, definitely very comfortable. So we talk about going to a third time back. This is how Machi are able to get that third time back because they've had a great attack so far, and they should be able to do that again.
Ooh, try to go big on the dive onto Pepper.
That's a spawn camp, they can't come out.
Spawn camp. He can't, but while that was happening, they were demeching Jasper. Can able to go aggressive there. So now Pepper coming back out with the tactical buys and needs to get a lot of work done, but he's just getting buffeted back into the spawn again. This is certainly going to be a third, and Libalent need to be careful how they reinforce here so that they don't trickle in. Darrington has committed the ultimate, but they may just need to leave him for dead and commit to a 5 versus 6. That being said, with Darrington dead, who is going to contest Nuns? Oh my goodness, Keisuke somehow is going to be the one to do it. Otane does go down, and the trade kill there will not be able to use that Dragon Blade. The self-destruct from No Talk does not get a whole lot done as he's able to remech here. Libalent are looking like they should be able to beat back the tide here just a touch. Struggling again to deal with D-Crown though as he dives the supports. And that's 2/3 secure now as Hotari opens up but was a little low. And suddenly Machi, just because the members of Libalent kind of abandoned the point, they've stretched themselves thin again. They are again struggling with the reinforce now as Jasper is going to lose his mech. KCK getting picked as he tries to reinforce. And who is here left from Libalent to contest the point? Still 3 whole minutes for Machi to even back off and go in for that final third if they needed. But they're not going to need, as like you said, Sound Barrier to secure it, and it's the last kill on Pepper. We're going to another time bank, I believe.
And another Machi favorite time bank where they are just so far ahead in time. And this is, you know, Libalent Supreme, we were somewhat surprised at the end there. We're like, oh, we thought they're going to have to play a slow game here. They're in 20 seconds, very unlikely to cap out B. To get that miracle cap onto B for Machi, it's a very different story. It's almost like it's expected. We talk about Machi like they are going to cap out B, but with what kind of time? It was just a thing that was always going to happen for this team, and certainly with a very competitive time. I want to give it up to D-Crown because he was the one that really made the play. It was probably a team call, but look, D-Crown forced 3 members to hide into spawn. Libalent Supreme probably should have just aggressed onto D-Crown regardless in a 3v1, but D-Crown prevented 3 members from coming up. The other 3 members were killed by the other Machi members, and then suddenly 6v3. Machi are heavily favored.
And you're basically permanently in a 6v3. You just kind of cycle those 3 members. And because they were able to get those 3 kills without any counter trades coming through for Libalent, they were just constantly ahead in the remainder of that fight. I mean, if you're going to play for thirds, you tend to get, you know, a bit of a team wipe or something like that. And maybe there's some counter trades and then you end up having to back off. or you just kind of create enough space that you're able to get a third. But actually cycling out that 3 and 3 ended up being a really great way for Machi to get the full cap, and that is what they did on their first attack as well.
And by the way, D-Crown didn't even die.
Yeah.
Because the second time, Libalent tried to come out, he primal raged, and then he still didn't die after that. So for Machi, very clean attack, and they're attacking again. And look, if the attacks have been this good, I find it very hard to believe for Libalent Supreme to really be able to hold out.
And already set up off to the side, lying in wait. And only a third has to be capped up by Machi, so Libalent have to hold out here for just under 2.5 minutes to push this to a golden point tiebreaker. Hotade low did get Kiyomi in that dash, but they lose to Eriton, which means Hotade had to go aggressive, but ends up losing his life for it. They get the kill onto Nuns, and that could be all they need, but Can is still at a pose. Pepper's dead. There's no one left from Libalent to contest this, really. It's just Kaseka and Selena. They got to stay on it. No, they're not on it, and then let it go over. Machi are going to be able to pick that up. Triple time bank. It was not an easy win for them at the end. Libalent really pushed it to the absolute limit, but ultimately, again, they could not execute when it counted, could not get it over the line, could not hold out on the defense, and it showed.
And for Libalent Supreme, the storyline of Horizon Lunar Colony was staying in the game. It was less so about leading that game, because it was Machi leading on every single turn. Every single time bank we had, Machi favored. So unfortunately for Libalent Supreme, it was about how much time can you survive with a decreasing time every single time bank, and eventually you just don't get enough left, and that really showed because it was Machi capping out that last third, closing the door onto Libalent Supreme, and a 3-0 shutout victory in this opening match of the day. And the real heartbreaker here is for Libalent Supreme, yes, they're now 0-6, but they're also going to be losing Hotade now. He was going to be leaving the OPC 0-6 as his record as well.
Really unfortunate for them, and they will be bringing in a replacement, I believe, in time for their match against Mega Thunder later in the weekend. But on the flip side of that, Machi Esports can walk away from that one pretty pleased as they collect their handshakes because they have at least retained the chance at mobility. It is going to be defined ultimately by their match later this weekend against Hong Kong Attitude. Certainly a bit of a rivalry between those two teams there, but they have, with this win now, this 3-0 against Libalent Supreme, kept alive, their hopes of breaking out of that bottom 3 for the end of this round robin, and indeed potentially pushing into that top 4.
And it does feel so strange that a team like Machi is this far below, this far down in the standings, because the way they're playing, they actually feel much closer to teams like Hong Kong Attitude. In fact, I'm very much looking forward to that later on this weekend when they finally get to take on Hong Kong Attitude, because both of these teams, very similar storylines, very similar strengths as well. They look about on par with each other, and that's going to be really exciting. And we sort of have to keep going back to Libalent Supreme, always feeling like they are just falling short. Let's take a look at the replay now. It's about to hit
yeah,
to the
and that's
plate.
the thing. Speaking of falling short, look, even when, and I believe this is on their attack, even when they were having successes, look at how hard fought this was. When you compare that to how quickly Machi were kind of sweeping them down, the fact that D-Crown is still alive and kicking up until this point with as little health as he has, getting kills before he finally goes down, should tell you a lot. And then, of course, he finally goes down, but Can and Nonez are still in the fight picking up kills. They're just making it as hard as physically possible for them to be overcome. And it's kind of what we talk about when we talk about Flash Wolves. It's like, oh, you can kill Bacon Jack, but there's still Zonda. You can still kill Zonda, and there's still Bacon Jack. And you can kill both, and there's still Jongi. And actually, Machi feel exactly the same right now. You can kill one DPS, or you can kill the other, and if you are finally able to kill both, D-Crown's going to get a whole bunch of kills. And it makes them a very difficult team to overcome. If your target priority is literally half the opposing team, it makes it very, very hard to decide who must die when.
And it is in those final moments. You actually see when Libalent Supreme actually cap it over, it's with a double kill onto the self-destruct, a double kill on the Dragon Blade. They need these sort of big swing moments where somebody makes a huge play, somebody gets a big ultimate in there that really sets the tone for the rest of the team. But that aside, in the actual straight-up 1v1s, Kant is always beating Pepper, Nuns is outplaying Hotade as well. It just seems like, you know, you make the comparison between Daraton and D-Crown as well. One player is going in, unfortunately he dies, the other player, he goes in, he just doesn't die, and he gets the kills as well. And so for Machi, it feels like from a default standard, they have been the better team. Let's go into the next replay now. It's going to be on cap number B.
Number B is my favorite number
Yep,
of the
my
alphabet.
number favor of the number continuum.
Yeah, of the hexadecimal system.
Yes.
And this is actually Machi's final attack here, the one that pushed it to the last batch of time back. And this is that 3-3 that we were talking about, where it was only ever kind of 3 members alive. Pepper is alive, but he was just forced back in the base. There was only 3 people in the fight.
D-Crown.
Yeah, now it's only Daraton. They were waiting to get the full respawn, but they sort of went, oh, but Diargen's gonna die. It would be a 5 versus 6 at best. So they sort of half commit. And then in that half commit, Jasper is suddenly isolated, Hotate is isolated, now the 3 again, as Keisuke is stuck on the point with D-Max, Jasper, and Selene, and they're never in this ideal position. They're never, you know, in their fighting stance.
And Machi has such good spawn control there, not just from D-Crown, but you even see the self-destruct for No Talk. It was thrown towards the spawn of Libalent Supreme. The only time Libalent Supreme actually broke out of spawn was with Keisuke's Transcendence. Beyond that, they had no opportunity to get out whatsoever. Even with the Transcendence, they couldn't pick up any kills. In fact, they were still losing members to Machi during Transcendence.
And it's because by the time they had the Transcendence, if you look at their team comp right now, they've got a Tracer, a Doomfist, and a Sombra, that's what that woman's called. And those are extremely mobile. They all want to be moving around the fight. No one wants to sit on top of the Zenyatta, which is why they were able to get picked off like that. And it's just this unfortunate quirk of they wanted the mobility so that they could keep ducking in and out of the fight, keep the point contested, pick up some trade kills, and slowly start to stabilize. But in so doing, actually lost the effectiveness of their most useful stabilization tool at that moment, which was the Transcendence. And you touched on something in the previous replay about the ultimates going off for Libalent Supreme, and it does seem that when they get those ultimates going off, they have these real blowout fights, and we start to see the team shine. But how many times did Hotate pull out a Dragon Blade only to get killed instantly or find nothing at all because Machi were ready for it? What's actually happening is so rarely are they getting those big ultimates that we're not seeing them shine often enough for it to count.
You know, or just being too low to use it. But we're going to move on to player of the game from No Talk. So he had that really big self-destruct play that we saw on Lee Jung Tower, and he, you know, had the self-destruct face-off as well right at the end there. I think he just had some very good plays. He was one of the members that actually shut down Pepper a couple times, despite Kant winning the 1v1s. Actually, No Talk being able to eat the pulse bombs, and you kind of got to be able to credit Jasper for eating some of Kant's pulse bombs. But look, No Talk did his job today, but the other members I really want to highlight has to be, to me, Kant as well, because
for sure.
specifically winning those 1v1s, great pulse bomb sticks. We saw it between Lee Jung and Nabani. Just seemed like he didn't miss anyone. I'm sure there was probably one he missed in there, but it just didn't feel like it. It felt like he hit all of them. Let's get into the post-match interview now, and it's going to be with Kant. I'll be translating over.
，Hello，大家好，我是 Ken。
看的这一次呢，哎，今天一开始的时候好像有一点点小不稳哦。
哦，对对。
So it feels like you're a bit shaky.
第一局有点在炮墙。
有点怕怕的感觉。
So yeah, first map on Lee Jung was a little
最
bit
近
shaky.
呢，其实选手们都会在讨论拳王这件事情，因为
So
像
you're talking about
有
Doomfist a
些
lot?
选手他虽然操作很好，可是团队配合不见得
So it feels like some teams
加
are
油
trying it
良
out.
的。那你们
Some
现在目
teams
前
have
状
made
况，
it
你觉
work,
得
some
还
teams
算
haven't.
上手吗？
How do you feel?
其实还算上手啦，但是我们还是觉得其实
So we have been trying it out.
忍者跟拳王其实看哪边操作的好，其实上哪边其实没有什么
And it。feels like we're still trying to figure out when
那你
exactly
觉得他
we
们有
want to
特
bring it
别
out.
counter 对方吗？
How do you think it's counted?
拳王其实也还好，还是要看操作者啦。像我就比较雷
I。think we have to really look at
玩得够好就
compositions
不怕
and look
是
at
不是没关
situations.
系，你还有时间可以练哦。那你们拳王的部分是怎么分配的？
So how do you decide who plays?
如果真的要拿射控的话，可能因为我可能射控还没有那个浪子好，所以我就会转去拿拳王。
So I feel like Nuns picks it up more often. I have less practice. I have less
那再来是刚刚
experience
最
on the
后
hero
一
so
场
far.
月球基地的时候，其实有一点点替你们担心，觉得感觉好像有一点僵持，有点快打不赢 LS 的。那时候的状况是怎么样？
So how do you feel like with the overall
其实
performance of
蛮
how
多都
you?
是我错掉了，就是那个空拳啊，然后 shift 一啊，什么都没打中，然后昨天也没打到，然后就死掉了。
所以你觉
I
得
had
问
I
题
had
出
some
在
particularly
你对这
difficult
角色
moments on
不
the
太熟悉，
Doomfist
还
with
是
some
纯粹
mechanical
的团
errors.
队配合的问题？
应该是自己还不够啊，应该自己还不够。
好了，可以啦，可
I
以。
feel like
到时
it's
候
you
就好
know
好加
it's
油啦
less
那
so
乔南有什么问题
the overall strategy with
我想
the
问一
picks
下
and more
就是
so
在
my performance
拳王
and
这
visual
个
and some of
这
them.
么强势的版本之中，因为我觉得你们的队伍有点特别，基本上不选拳王，而是选择还是很容易被克制的原式，原因是什
So
么？
you actually pick a lot of Genji still.
就是
instead
我
of Doomfist?
们自己在团练的时候，我们就是因为新的版本就是拳王，其实他的那个 key bus 有点 nerf 了，所以
对，
我们就还是觉得，如果忍者玩到很好的话，至少在 OPC 的话，还是能继续 照样打赢。
So I feel like if Nuns is playing it and he's playing well, we can find a lot of victories.
版本不适应的问题，
对对对，
这样
会有点赶不上这样。
哦，好，那在第二个问题哦，就是我相信大家有看 OPC 就很清楚的知道说，你们队伍有一个特色，就是会拿保护机做开战。那关于这一点，在之后的对手想要特别针对你们这一点做克制的时候，你们有什么其他的套路吗？
应该还是要看情况而定啊，就是也要算一下对面大招跟我们大招之类的，就是其实也不太一定，就可能今天刚好是都因为这样开战那样。
了解了解。
So he's talking about ultimates there, and he feels like, you know, I believe it was something to do with, you know, in situations when they're behind an ultimate, or in situations where they're not
所以
particularly
队上其
favored,
实是没有
they're
人
still
特
able
别
to
阻
pull
止这件
themselves
事
out.
情，都是有一个人喊冲，大家就说好，那我们上，这样吗？
对对，差不多。
好，那希望你们之后团队沟通可以再调整一下喽。祝福你们，那无论如何，恭喜还是你今天获得这一场比赛的
So
胜
I
利。
wish you guys the best of luck, and in scrims as well, able to pick up on the communication and everything else. But congratulations on the victory. So there it is, 3-0 for them so far, and a team that's still going to work through a couple of things. And I think that's quite evident because we look at Horizon Lunar Colony, and it did really appear that when they were running Tracer instead of Doomfist on Kant, that's when they were very successful. Other way around, not so much. So a couple things to iron out.
Yes, and absolutely reflected in the standings, given that they haven't had those much-needed wins against the topmost teams in this tournament. But with that win picked up against Libalent Supreme, they are clear of a bottom two finish for this round robin, regardless of their result against Hong Kong Attitude, because they have beaten Mega Thunder. So if that does end up being a tie, they will technically be the better of those teams, and they will be 6th place with Mega Thunder technically being 7th. So nice pickup for them, but the big kahuna for them is still certainly Hong Kong Attitude on, I believe it is Sunday.
Sunday is correct, but we're not quite at Sunday yet. Still into the Friday. First match out of the way now. 2 more matches still to come up. The next one is going to be Ardent versus AHQ Esports Club. And that is all happening after this break, so don't go anywhere.